The signal led me to a crash site in the mountains. Inside, I found a girl who communicated through feelings, not words, and now they're coming for her. The night was quiet at the research station, just the usual hum of computers and the distant sound of crickets. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had been staring at the same screen for 3 hours, tracking radio signals from deep space. Most nights were like this, boring and repetitive. But tonight felt different. Around midnight, something strange appeared on her monitor. A signal, not like the random noise from distant stars or the regular pulses from known satellites. This was organized, rhythmic, almost like it was trying to say something. Her heart started beating faster. She checked the coordinates 3 times to make sure she wasn't making a mistake. The signal was coming from somewhere close. Too close. Just a few miles away in the mountains. Elena sat there for a moment, wondering what to do. Should she call someone? Report it? But something inside told her to go check it first. Maybe it was just a weather balloon or some military equipment. She didn't want to look foolish calling everyone in the middle of the night for nothing. She grabbed her flashlight and jacket, then drove her old Jeep up the mountain roads. The path was rough, and her hands gripped the steering wheel tight. After 20 minutes of bumpy driving, she saw something glowing faintly between the trees. Her stomach felt tight with nervousness. Walking closer, she found it. A small craft. Maybe the size of a large car. Half buried in the dirt. The metal was unlike anything she'd seen before. Smooth and dark, with patterns that seemed to shift when she looked at them. There was a crack in the side, and a soft blue light was coming from inside. Elena's logical mind told her to turn around and call the authorities, but curiosity was stronger. She climbed up to the opening and looked inside. That's when she saw her. A girl, or at least something that looked like a girl, lying against the wall of the craft. Her skin had a faint glow to it, like moonlight on water. Her eyes were closed, and she was breathing heavily. There was something wrong with her arm. A dark mark that looked like a burn or injury. The girl's eyes suddenly opened. They weren't normal eyes. They changed colors, shifting from blue to green to something in between. Elena jumped back, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The girl tried to speak, but the sounds made no sense. It wasn't any language Elena recognized. The girl looked frustrated, then scared. She reached toward a small device on her belt, touched it, and it sparked and died. Whatever it wasn't working anymore. Elena should have run. Every reasonable part of her brain screamed at her to get out of there. But the girl looked so frightened, so lost. And there was something in her eyes that seemed almost human. The fear, the pain, the hope that maybe Elena would help instead of hurt. The girl slowly raised her hand toward Elena. Not threatening, just reaching out. Elena hesitated. Then, without really thinking about why, she stepped forward and took the girl's hand. What happened next was impossible to describe with words. It was like a wave crashed over her, but not water. Feelings. Pure feelings flooded into her mind. Fear, yes, but also desperation and a pleading request. The girl was asking for help, asking for silence, asking to not be discovered. Elena could feel the danger the girl was in, could sense that if others found her, something terrible would happen. When their hands separated, Elena felt dizzy. She leaned against the craft, trying to catch her breath. The girl was watching her carefully, waiting to see what she would do. Elena made a decision that would change everything. She couldn't explain why, but she knew she had to protect this stranger. She helped the girl out of the craft, supporting her weight as they walked. The girl was taller than Elena expected, but lighter, like her bones were made of something different. Getting her into the Jeep was difficult. The girl was weak from her injuries. Elena drove carefully back down the mountain, checking constantly to make sure no one was following them. Her research cabin was isolated, 15 minutes from the nearest neighbor. It was the safest place she could think of. Inside the cabin, Elena helped the girl onto the couch. She brought water, food, blankets, not knowing what else to do. The girl tried the water and seemed okay with it. The food she looked at but didn't touch. They sat there in silence. two beings from different worlds, both uncertain about what would happen next. Elena had so many questions, but no way to ask them. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice wondered if she had just made the biggest mistake of her life, or the most important decision she would ever make. The first few days were the hardest. Elena called in sick to the observatory, something she never did. Her colleague Thomas kept texting, asking if she was okay. She replied with short messages, saying she had the flu and needed rest. Each lie made her feel worse. But what else could she say? The girl, who Elena started calling Zara in her mind since she had no other name to use, spent most of her time sleeping. When she was awake, she would look around the cabin with curious eyes, touching things gently like a child discovering the world. A wooden table, a coffee cup, a book. Everything seemed to fascinate her. On the third morning, something changed. Elena was making breakfast when she felt a gentle touch on her shoulder. She turned to find Zara standing there. Her hand extended. This time, Elena wasn't afraid. She took Zara's hand, and again the feelings came. But now, it was different. Clearer. Elena could feel curiosity, gratitude, and something like friendship starting to form. And beneath it all, she felt Zara's loneliness. Not just being alone in this moment, but a deeper loneliness that seemed to go back years. When they separated, Elena understood something important. Zara's people didn't talk the way humans did. They felt each other. They shared emotions and experiences directly, without the messiness of words that could be misunderstood or twisted. Over the next few weeks, they developed a routine. Every day, they would touch hands and share. Through these connections, Elena began to see Zara's world, not with her eyes exactly, but with something deeper. She felt memories that weren't hers. There were vast forests made of crystal that sang when the wind blew through them. Beings like Zara would gather in groups, linking hands, sharing everything they felt and thought. There was no hiding, no lying, no pretending. Everyone knew what everyone else truly felt. It seemed beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Elena shared her own memories too. Growing up in a small town, her father teaching her about the stars, the loneliness of being the only girl in her school who cared more about telescopes than parties, her failed relationships with people who thought she was too distant, too focused on her work, the feeling of never quite fitting in anywhere. When Zara felt these memories, Elena sensed understanding flowing back. Zara was alone too. Her people had sent her on this mission by herself, because it was too dangerous for groups. If something went wrong, they couldn't risk losing multiple explorers. So Zara had been traveling alone through space, visiting different worlds, studying how other species experienced emotion. One evening, during their connection, Elena felt something new. Fear. Sharp and immediate. Images flashed through her mind. 3 others like Zara, but harder somehow. Colder. They were searching. They had detected her ship's emergency beacon before it died. They were coming. Elena pulled back, breathing hard. She looked at Zara and saw the same fear in her shifting eyes. Without words, they both understood. Time was running out. Elena spent the next days trying to fix the translation device from Zara's belt. She was good with electronics, but this technology was far beyond anything she'd studied. Still, she tried. She had to try, but something else was happening too. Something neither of them expected. The more they connected, the more Elena began to change. At first, it was small things. She would walk into a room and suddenly know that her neighbor down the road was feeling sad, even though she couldn't see him. When Thomas finally visited to check on her, she could feel his worry and concern before he even spoke. It was overwhelming. She'd spent her whole life with her own feelings, and now she was picking up everyone else's too. It was like suddenly being able to hear 1,000 radio stations at once, all playing different songs. One night, Zara touched her hand, and Elena felt something she hadn't felt before. Guilt. Zara was sorry. She hadn't meant to change Elena, but their species had this effect on others when they connected too much. It changed the brain, opened up new pathways. And once opened, those pathways didn't close. Elena sat on her porch that night, looking at the stars, feeling the emotions of every living thing around her. The contentment of sleeping birds, the simple hunger of insects, the complex feelings of the few humans within her range. She was becoming something different, something in between human and whatever Zara was. And the scary part? She wasn't sure she wanted to go back to the way things were before. For the first time in her life, she truly understood others. She could feel their pain, their joy, their fears. Words had always seemed so inadequate to her. Now she knew why. Because feelings were so much bigger than any words could express. Thomas showed up unannounced on a Tuesday morning. Elena saw his car coming up the road and felt panic rising. Zara was in the cabin, visible through the window. There was no time to hide her. Elena met Thomas outside, blocking the door with her body. She could feel his emotions now. Something she was still getting used to. Concern mixed with frustration, and something else. He cared about her, more than just as a colleague. That feeling was unexpected, and made everything more complicated. They talked on the porch. Thomas said she'd been acting strange for weeks. The observatory needed her back. Was something wrong? Elena tried to give excuses, but she'd never been good at lying. And now, feeling his genuine worry, lying felt even worse. When Thomas left, unconvinced but respecting her space, Elena went back inside and sat down heavily. Zara touched her arm, and Elena felt the question. Should they have told him? Elena shook her head. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Some people would want to help, but others would see Zara as something to study, to lock up, to use. That night, Elena and Zara sat together, as they did every evening now. Their connection had become deeper, easier. Elena no longer felt dizzy when they touched. Instead, it felt natural. Like coming home after a long trip. Through their link, Zara showed Elena more about her world and her mission. Her people had been exploring the galaxy for thousands of years, always watching, always studying, but rarely making contact. They'd learned that giving emotional connection to species that weren't ready for it could be dangerous. Elena felt memories that weren't hers. Worlds where people learned to feel each other's emotions before they learned to handle their own. Societies that collapsed because everyone could feel everyone else's pain and fear, creating feedback loops of negative emotion that spread like wildfire. Wars that started when people felt threatened by others who could sense their true feelings. The quarantine wasn't meant to be cruel. It was meant to protect species from a gift they weren't ready to receive. Zara had been studying humanity, watching from a distance, trying to determine if Earth was ready. That's why she'd been in the area, observing the research station and the people who worked there. But Elena also felt something else in Zara's memories. Loneliness. Deep and aching. Zara's people lived in emotional connection with each other, but that meant they rarely felt truly alone. Being sent on this solo mission had been harder than Zara expected. She missed her family, her friends, the constant gentle presence of other minds touching hers. One evening, something extraordinary happened. They were connected as usual when Elena felt a shift. Suddenly, she wasn't just feeling Zara's emotions. She was experiencing the world through Zara's senses. The room looked different. Colors she had no names for appeared in the corners of her vision. She could sense the electromagnetic field from her laptop, like a gentle humming. The wood of the cabin felt alive in a way she'd never noticed. Like she could sense the tree it had once been. Time felt strange, not like a river flowing forward but like a pool she could sense in all directions at once. When they separated, Elena gasped. Her hands were shaking. The world looked normal again, but she knew it would never feel the same. She'd experienced reality through alien senses, and part of that experience had stuck with her. Zara looked worried. Elena felt the concern radiating from her. They both knew what this meant. Elena was changing faster now. Her brain was adapting, creating new ways to process information. She was becoming something humanity had never seen before. Over the next few days, Elena experimented with her new abilities. She could sense people's emotions from farther away now. Almost a mile in any direction. She knew when her neighbor was having an argument with his wife. She felt when Thomas at the observatory was working late, frustrated with data that didn't make sense. It was exhausting. Beautiful and terrible at the same time. She understood people in ways they didn't even understand themselves. But she also felt their pain, their anger, their fear as if it were her own. There was no way to turn it off. One night, unable to sleep because of the constant noise of other people's feelings, Elena went outside. The stars were bright, and she stared up at them, wondering which one was Zara's home. Zara joined her, and they sat in comfortable silence. No touching needed now. Elena could feel Zara's presence like a warm light next to her. They'd become something rare, two beings from different worlds who understood each other completely. But Elena also felt the approaching danger. Like a distant storm she could sense on the horizon. The others were getting closer. Soon they would arrive, and everything would change again. The question was whether that change would destroy everything they'd built or transform it into something new. They arrived on a cold night when the moon was full. Elena felt them before she saw them. Three presences, sharp and controlled, moving through the forest toward her cabin. Their emotions were so different from Zara's. Where Zara was warm and open, these others felt like ice. Hard, determined, focused. Elena woke Zara, and together they waited. There was nowhere to run. These beings could probably sense them, just as easily as Elena now sensed others. The knock on the door came at exactly 2 a.m. Elena opened it to find 3 figures standing in her yard. They looked similar to Zara but taller, and their eyes didn't shift colors. They stayed a cold, steady blue. The one in front, clearly the leader, looked at Elena and then at Zara. When he spoke, Elena heard sounds she couldn't understand, but she felt his meaning. It crashed over her like a wave. Disappointment, anger, determination. He was here to take Zara back. Zara stepped forward and touched the leader's hand. Elena watched as emotions flickered across both their faces. They were having an entire conversation in seconds, sharing thoughts and feelings faster than words could ever convey. When they separated, the leader looked unmoved. He turned to Elena, and before she could react, he grabbed her wrist. The connection was nothing like her gentle touches with Zara. This was forced, invasive, like someone rifling through her mind. He was looking at her memories, seeing how she and Zara had connected, judging what had happened. When he let go, Elena stumbled back, feeling violated. The leader's face showed disgust. In her mind, she felt his thoughts clearly. Contamination. She'd been contaminated. Zara had broken the rules. But then something unexpected happened. One of the others, a female who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. She touched Elena's hand gently, asking permission with her eyes. Elena nodded. This connection was different from the leader's invasion. It was curious, exploring. The female was trying to understand, not judge. Elena shared her experience honestly. The loneliness she'd felt before meeting Zara. The beauty of finally being understood. The overwhelming nature of her new abilities, but also the meaning they'd given her life. When they separated, the female looked thoughtful. She turned to the leader and touched his arm. Another silent conversation. But Elena could feel the tension in it. They were arguing. The leader finally spoke in their language, and Zara translated through touch with Elena. He was giving them an ultimatum. Zara had violated the quarantine protocols by sharing emotional connection with a human. The punishment was severe. She would be taken back to face judgment. But there was a possibility. The female had suggested something. Earth was close to a tipping point. Humanity was developing technology that would soon let them travel to other worlds. Within a few generations, they would encounter other species, whether ready or not. Perhaps it was time to test if humans could handle the gift of emotional connection. The leader was skeptical. He showed Elena memories of other worlds, other species that had failed this test. She felt the chaos, the destruction, the good intentions that led to terrible outcomes. Emotional connection without emotional maturity was like giving powerful weapons to children. Elena felt anger rising. She stepped forward and grabbed the leader's wrist, forcing a connection. She showed him things he didn't expect. Human compassion. Mothers caring for sick children, strangers helping each other during disasters, artists expressing feelings through music and paint because they had no other way to share what was inside them. Scientists like her spending their lives trying to understand the universe because they felt connected to something bigger than themselves. Yes, humans did terrible things. They fought wars. They hurt each other. But they also loved fiercely, created beauty, and constantly tried to be better than they were. They struggled with communication precisely because they felt so much and had such inadequate tools to express it. The leader pulled away, looking shaken. For the first time, his icy control had cracked. He'd felt the depth of human emotion, the desperate desire to understand and be understood. The female spoke again, and Elena felt her proposal clearly. Let Elena become a bridge, transform her fully, complete the change that had already begun. If she could learn to master emotional connection, if she could prove that a human could handle this gift responsibly, then it would be evidence that humanity might be ready. But there was a cost. The transformation would be permanent and complete. Elena would never be fully human again. She would be something new, something alone. She could never have a normal life, normal relationships. She would be too different, would feel too much. She would spend her existence being a bridge between two worlds, but never fully belonging to either. The leader gave Elena time to decide, 7 days. Then they would return for Zara, regardless of Elena's choice. If Elena agreed to transform, Zara could stay and continue her research with Elena as her partner. If Elena refused, Zara would be taken, and humanity's file would be marked as not ready for contact. It might be centuries before they were checked again. The week that followed was the longest of Elena's life. She spent hours sitting alone. Though alone was a relative term now. She could feel every living thing around her. The deer in the forest, the birds in the trees, the few humans within her expanding range. Their feelings washed over her constantly. She drove into town one day, something she'd been avoiding. Walking down the main street felt overwhelming. Every person she passed was like a radio station broadcasting their inner world. The shop owner worried about his sick father, the teenager uncertain about her future, the elderly woman remembering her late husband with every step past their favorite restaurant. It was too much. Elena sat in her car and cried, feeling not just her own emotions but echoes of everyone else's pain too. Was this what her life would become? An endless, overwhelming flood of other people's feelings? That evening, Zara found her on the porch. Without words, just sitting beside her, Zara shared something important. A technique. Her people learned it as children. How to create boundaries, how to choose what to feel, and what to let pass by. It was like learning to focus your eyes. You could see everything, or you could choose to look at one thing. They practiced together. Slowly, Elena learned to control her new sense. She couldn't turn it off completely, but she could turn down the volume. Choose what to pay attention to, create peaceful space in her mind when she needed it. The next day, Elena visited Thomas at the observatory. She hadn't been back in over a month. When she walked in, she felt his relief and concern, like sunshine after rain. They talked, really talked, for the first time in years. And Elena, with her new sensitivity, could feel when her words hurt him or brought him joy. She could navigate the conversation with a precision she'd never had before. When Thomas mentioned how distant she used to seem, Elena felt his old pain. Years of working beside her, caring about her, but always feeling like there was a wall between them. Now she understood why she'd built those walls. She'd been protecting herself from feelings she didn't know how to handle. She went to visit her mother next, a 3-hour drive to the coast. They'd always had a difficult relationship. Both of them too similar, both stubborn and independent. But sitting across from her mother at dinner, Elena felt something she'd never recognized before. Under her mother's criticism and worry was fear. Fear that Elena was alone. that she'd sacrificed too much for her career, that she'd end up isolated. Elena took her mother's hand, and though she couldn't share her feelings the way she did with Zara, something passed between them. Understanding. Her mother's eyes filled with tears, and she said, "You've changed. Something's different about you." Elena smiled. "I'm learning to feel what others feel, Mom." Finally, on the 6th day, Elena sat with Zara in the cabin. They connected deeply, sharing the decision Elena was wrestling with. Zara showed her what life could be, working together to help humanity develop emotional intelligence, teaching people to understand each other better. Maybe even, in time, helping humans develop their own version of emotional connection. But Zara also showed her the price. The loneliness of being different. The weight of feeling so much. The responsibility of being a bridge. There were no others like Elena, and there might not be for generations. She would be unique, isolated in her own way. That night, Elena walked under the stars one last time as fully human. She thought about her life, about all the moments she'd felt disconnected from others, about relationships that failed because she couldn't express what she felt inside. She thought about the beauty of finally being understood by Zara, of understanding herself better through their connection. She realized something important. She'd always been isolated. Her whole life. She'd felt alone even in crowds. At least now, her isolation would have purpose. She wouldn't just be someone who couldn't connect. She'd be someone building the bridges that would help others connect. When the 7 days ended, the 3 visitors returned. The leader stood waiting, his cold eyes watching Elena. She stepped forward and extended her hand to him. Through touch, she shared her decision. She would transform. She would become the bridge. Not because she was certain it would work, but because someone had to try. Because Zara had taken a risk on her, and now it was her turn to take a risk on humanity. The transformation took 3 days. The visitors had technology that could speed up what was already happening to her brain. Elena felt her mind expanding, creating new pathways, new ways of processing information. It was painful and beautiful at the same time. When it was over, the world had changed. Or rather, her perception of it had changed completely. She could sense emotions from miles away now. She could feel the electromagnetic fields that Zara felt. She could perceive time in strange, non-linear ways. She was no longer quite human, but she wasn't like Zara's people either. She was something new. The visitors left, satisfied that their experiment had begun. But the female paused before departing. She touched Elena's hand one last time, and shared a feeling, pride, and something else. Hope. Maybe Elena would prove that humanity was ready after all. 6 months passed. Elena worked with Zara, learning to control her abilities, beginning the long work of helping humanity understand itself better. She couldn't directly share emotions with other humans the way she did with Zara, but she could read them, understand them, and help them understand each other. She started small, counseling couples who couldn't communicate, helping parents understand their troubled teenagers, mediating conflicts where both sides were convinced the other didn't care. She could feel the truth beneath people's words, and help them find it too. Thomas figured out eventually that something extraordinary had happened, though Elena never told him the full truth. He accepted that she was different now, and surprisingly, they grew closer. Her difference didn't scare him. It intrigued him. Elena stood on her porch one evening, Zara beside her, both of them watching the sunset. She felt the world around her, all its pain and joy and complicated emotions. It was overwhelming sometimes, but it was also profound. She was more alone than ever before, too different from other humans to ever fully belong again. But she was also more connected than she'd ever been, understanding the hearts of others in ways they couldn't even understand themselves. She'd made her choice, and despite the cost, she knew it was right. Someone had to take the first step. Someone had to build the bridge between feeling and understanding, and maybe, in time, others would follow. Maybe humanity would learn that beneath all their words and differences, everyone felt the same fundamental things. Fear, hope, love. the desire to be understood. It was a start. And sometimes, a start was all you needed.